Hi everyone, welcome to episode 4 of On My Studio Table. I hope you've enjoyed the other episodes. If you haven't seen them, I would encourage you to watch them and I hope you find them interesting. I've had such a lovely response, it's been so encouraging, and my subscribers have risen absolutely amazingly. I am blown away by it. Thank you so much. Before I share with you what's on my studio table, I'll just talk about briefly the hanging behind me. This is an art quilt or a textile art piece which I made called Lost Map. And as I was putting it together, it just reminded me of a map, and I thought, yes, this is what it's about. It's about the fact that we don't really have a map to help us make decisions every day. If we're people of faith, which I am, we do ask for guidance from a higher being than us. But, you know, we don't really know from day to day what's going to happen next, and we have to think on our feet. So it's like we've lost the map sometimes, I think. We have goals, and it's good if we have goals, but sometimes they change, so it's quite complex. And the front piece is a piece of bark cloth which I dyed and rusted. The grey piece is drill, and the backing pieces are pieces that I've either eco printed and dyed or buried in the ground for 6 weeks, or both. And that gives really interesting marks. And I really enjoyed working on this piece. Just below my shoulder also you see a bit of colour there, and these are paint wipes that an artist friend gave me, so I've incorporated some of them into this as well. It's entirely hand stitched, and it's actually quite big. It's more than 1 metre long and probably more than half a metre wide. And a lot of my pieces have an immediate obvious meaning, but sometimes they have lots of hidden meanings too, a bit like the layers of meaning, layers of cloth, layers of stitch. So on my table today I have a journal cover that I've been working on for the last couple of days. If you follow me on social media, you'll see that I have been preparing the fabrics, and today I was able to do quite a lot of stitching. So here we are with the piece that I'm working on, with some stitching done, some still to do. I've got a piece of naturally dyed wool pinned on, ready to couch down. There's also mostly vintage fabrics or upcycled fabrics and leftovers from some of my previous work. And you'll see part of an old doily in this section here, which I really love. For the backing, I've used some wool and some cotton, and they also have interesting marks, nothing distinct. This one, the grey piece, is actually quite blotchy, but these all make good backgrounds or linings, even if they're not quite what you want for a feature fabric for something. So this is going to be entirely hand stitched. It's going to fold around a journal with a pocket in it for the journal to slide into. And if you remember episode 1 of On My Studio Table, I shared this journal with you. This is the first part of the 52-week project that I'm doing with K3n Chambers of K3n Clothtales, just for my own enjoyment. And we have room to interpret things in our own way, so I've done my cover and the way it operates in my own way, which has been fun to do. Again, naturally dyed fabrics, some vintage Japanese linen for the background, and then other pieces appliqued and stitched on. The tie is seam bindings from the edge of the vintage Japanese fabric, which had another life, but I'm not sure what it was. And then I add embroidery, which I love to do. I'm going to try not to let my keys clatter on the table like they did last time. I have some new pages that I've done in this according to the different themes that were given in the group, and I'm really enjoying this. So 1 week was the eclipse, which people in the northern hemisphere probably saw more clearly than what we did in the southern hemisphere. So the black strip is actually to delineate between the northern and southern hemispheres, because that's where I am, in the southern hemisphere. And we learned a new stitch, well, it was new for me, and that was the sun's rays. So it's a graduated stitch, ever decreasing and then terminating in just a stitched line, not necessarily a straight line, used apparently in Indian embroidery. So that was really interesting to do. And some of my journal writing that I put with it reads like this: the sun is shining, but it's too cold to sit outside. We have breakfast on the veranda when the weather's fine enough, but lately it's been too cold. And we've actually had snow on the mountain down the valley. The autumn colours are out in force. We have a lot of deciduous trees in Tasmania, and we've been getting frosts, so the wood fire's been going, and it's a beautiful time of the year. But as I said, too cold to sit outside for breakfast anyway. Then the next page was about earth and sea, and that's what mine ended up like. Again, all naturally dyed, and I did embroidery to represent plants trailing into the water and water trickling onto the land. Because they work together, they can't live one without the other. And when we destroy the balance, we're in trouble, which we have seen. And what I've written for this one is an excerpt from a journal entry that I did in 2021. And it reads like this, and I'm sorry, I've bumped the phone, so I'll just move it back. This is what it reads like. Despite everything, I cannot help but see beauty around me. And I think that's the key. If we can see beauty around us, despite the circumstances, then our lives will be much better and we'll be able to handle things much better, I think. We can dwell on the negatives, but they're not healthy for us at all. And if we can be positive and try and do what we can, in the meantime, it will help not only us but others. So I've written sea beauty underneath the embroidered piece, and you can see the back stitching as well. And the last one was the most recent, and the theme for this was backstory. So I've allowed my backing piece to actually protrude from the edges of the main piece. The backing piece is wool and the main piece is silk. That was part of an eco-printed shirt that I did, and the way the colours were on it reminded me of a landscape, so that's what I went with. And the words I've put with it: the day ended so much better than it began. So that's the journal so far, and it's nearly full, and then I'll be able to start on the second part of the project with the second journal once I finish the cover. I think I do have another cardie paper journal to put in it. The threads that I'm using for the new journal cover, I thought I'd show you. I try and have 4 or 5 threads that I use repeatedly to give continuity. Now this one's interesting. This is a paper thread. I bought that some years ago and I've used it every now and again for different projects. This is a beautiful silk and wool thread, and it's variegated green, really lovely soft greens, and it's got a beautiful sheen to it as well. And then I have some mohair from a place called Cascade House, and I think I bought these at the last quilt show because there's a big craft market with stores and so on, with supplies and so on, associated with the State Quilt Show. And this is another colour from the same place. So those are the colours that I'm using for the embroidery. And then for the couching, I've got a little length of naturally dyed yarn, wool yarn, that I use to tie one of my bundles for eco-dyeing and printing. And the lovely thing about it is if you use wool or silk in particular, they take colour as well. So they're great for adding to your work. Another thing I wanted to show you was to do with the scrolls. Now I did share one scroll with you in a previous video because I just completed it, and that was this one. And it's embroidered, it's more than 2 meters long, and it has naturally dyed fabrics in it. And I will reveal these probably on my Ko-fi page, which I've only just started, so I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a moment. So that's the latest one. And then the previous one that I finished was a similar idea, but different fabrics, different stitching, same rod, but if you put them side by side, you can see that they're different. My very favourites, even though these were a lot of work and I really enjoyed working on them, are the ones that are a bit more abstract and perhaps a bit more rustic. This is one that's on a found stick. So part of our property is bush, with lots of tall gum trees, and when there's a storm some sticks fall on the ground, and this was one of the sticks, and we cut it up to do 2 of the scrolls, and one end was quite rough and broken, so I've just asked my husband to sand that so it wasn't going to give me splinters, and sand the edges, and he cut them for me. But it really suits this scroll. It's all wool, all naturally dyed wool. This is a found bone piece that I think may have been from a bracelet or a belt that I'm using for a closure, and I've done some cloth twine as well. And this one has a lot of found objects. You'll see more of that when I reveal them. But you can see there's a piece of glass, the inside of a clothes peg, and a ring pull from a drinks can. I also used quite a lot of circles in that, as you can probably glimpse. This one I did just before the one I've just shown you. So that still has quite a lot of embroidery on it, similar to the first 2 scrolls. But then I went more abstract in the next one. So I was starting to become more abstract in this one, I think. It was part of my journey of embroidery, I think. So that one also has a closure from this broken piece of jewellery or belt or whatever it was, and I'm pretty sure it's bone, and some cloth twine to close it, and part of the same stick that was used for the other scroll. The 5th one, and this is only the 5th for the last 12 to 18 months, I have made other scrolls previously, was one that I did in an online class with, I think it was textileart.org, and we had a lovely tutor there, whose name escapes me at the moment, where we actually painted on fabric and then used that to inspire the stitching. And I used mostly paints that I made myself from the earth around me. I did also use some black gesso and some white gesso. I've just tied that with a leather thong. I just felt that was all it needed. And I did really enjoy working on that, and ended up having a different style of embroidery for that because of the painted marks. What I don't have to show you today is the rice bag that I've just finished. And if you go to my online shop, you'll see it there, because I have decided to put it out for sale. So if you go to gonerustic.com and go to art and decor or wearable, I'm not sure which one I put it under, but you'll find it there at gonerustic.com. I've also been making some statement necklaces, which I did share a little bit in my last video, I think. I've since made another one, and they're also available at gonerustic.com. And you can follow the journey of my making them on Facebook or Instagram. The links are below in the description. Now, I just hinted a minute ago about having started Ko-fi, and that is a way for you to support me if you would like to. Just $5, and I'm going to make some content available on Ko-fi that won't be available anywhere else. So you'll be able to see things and be allowed into some secrets, perhaps, of what I do and how I do it. So if you just go to ko-fi.com and then look for Gone Rustic, or one word, you'll find me. So I'd love you to have a look at that, and if you feel you'd like to support a business that tries to be ethical and sustainable in its approach, that would be just lovely. So I think that's all I want to share with you today. Thank you so much for joining me, and I look forward to meeting you again in the next episode. Thank you.